Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Mike Myatt, and I am the chairperson for the Attainable Housing Task Force here in the town of Saugeen Shores. And for the next hour or so, our panel looks forward to hearing about your housing concerns and housing needs. Just to give you some background in regards to how we arrived at where we are today, the Attainable Housing Task Force has been meeting for about 8 months or so. And I wanted to say a big thank you to the entire Attainable Housing Task Force. A couple of members which are on the line with us tonight, the Zoom call. Our main goal from the beginning was to make housing more affordable and attainable here in Saugeen Shores. And I can say to you that our Attainable Housing Task Force is working really hard in behind the scenes to help make that happen. Here are a few things our Housing Task Force has been working on. Our task force did hear from close to 800 local and area residents via an online survey, and we just wanted to thank people for their wonderful contribution and the comments that have been sent in over the last month or so. We held 4 key stakeholder meetings with over 30 participants sharing their thoughts and recommendations about housing needs here in Saugeen Shores. And those key stakeholder meetings were real eye openers. We learn a whole lot. Staff have met with land developers, and we have been, investigating housing options ranging from tiny homes to 1, 2, 3 bedroom apartments, rent geared income housing, and laneway homes. And when we talk about, rents here in the town of Saugeen Shores, they have skyrocketed, and it's not uncommon to see 1, 2, 3 bedroom homes going for $1,800, $2,000, $2,200, $2,300. And they really they come out of reach for some. And we I know as an Attainable Housing Task Force would like to see that those apartment unit rentals in the $600, $900, $1,200 range, make it more affordable, more attainable. And we're working on that. We've talked to some developers, and we hope some good things will happen next year. So today is our final step towards finalizing housing recommendations, and we plan to present these recommendations to council, Mayor and Council, early in January. There's 30 to 40 recommendations already we've put down on paper, and we're working on that final report. We'll take any comments this evening we feel we need to add to our final report and put that together. So we're excited about making that presentation to Council in the new year with our recommendations. In Saugeen Shores, we know people are hurting. We know rental costs have skyrocketed, and we know that's become more difficult to find attainable and affordable housing. Finding affordable housing is a real issue, and we want to help you. We want to fix this problem, and again, we're working hard at it. Before we introduce our panel for this evening, I would like to extend a personal thank you to all of you who have registered for the Zoom meeting here this evening and who are listening in. And so I just want to talk a little bit about, what is the Attainable Housing Task Force and what is our committee composition. Our Housing Task Force is made up of those that are self-employed. We have committee members who are employed at a variety of income levels. We have retirees represented. We have community volunteers who see the impact on our local residents with a lack of housing. And our Housing Task Force also includes those experienced in the housing industry who see firsthand the rapidly rising demand for all types of housing. Both tenants looking for rentals and those looking to purchase their first home for the very first time. And we talk about, housing costs here in the town of Saugeen Shores. I was alarmed at this number. The average household price now to get in the market is $525,000, and it's simply not reachable for many people in this community. And we want to work hard towards what can we do to bring that cost down. And I know our Attainable Housing Task Force has talked about tiny homes, for example, and it's one of my pet projects that I certainly like to see happen. Those $600, $900, and $1,200 apartment rental units are high priority. But wouldn't it be nice to have a developer come on board and help us with tiny homes that first time investors could maybe get invested for under $250,000 for the first time home. Yes, it might only be 600 square feet, one bedroom, but you're still invested in your first home and you're paying a mortgage. And instead of paying your payment toward, for $2,000 a month for rent, put it towards your first mortgage for a tiny home, and then eventually step up into 800 square feet, then 1,200 square feet. But get your feet, get into the market, I guess is what I'm saying. So we're working on that, and so we would really like to see a broad. Pardon me. Anyways, excuse me. I just moved on here. I lost my track in my notes. I just want to say for the people tuned in tonight, we look forward to your comments. And I think I wanted to say that there's a little button, I think, Jay, at the bottom of the screen, and it's a little hand. And for people listening this evening, if you decide that you want to ask a question of any of us, or if you want to provide a testimonial, which we're really after tonight is to let us know, how you feel things are going from a housing perspective. You just touch that little button at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a little hand, and you'll be able. We'll bring you in, and you can make comments. So I first like to say hi to John Van Bastelar. John Van Bastelar is the former mayor for the town of Port Elgin, and has always expressed interest in helping to solve our affordable and attainable housing crisis here in Saugeen Shores. And John and I will be co-moderating this evening. So John, if you just give us a little wave there, and I appreciate your help throughout this entire process, John. Next is Jay Posner. Jay, little wave there, and Jay is our planning supervisor, and Jay's done a tremendous amount of work to get us to where we are today. You may have communicated with Jay when you registered this evening. Matter of fact, I think it's probably how you did register for the Zoom meeting this evening. Jay sent you the link. And Alison Weiber's on the line tonight, and she's going to be helping to bring people in and out. If you'd like to say a few words, we hope you will. You're not shy tonight. Alison will assist with that. Councillor Cheryl Grace, and hi Cheryl, and welcome again. A little later on in the program, Cheryl will be commenting on the area of homelessness, and she will also discuss where we go from here. And I just want to say, about the homelessness question, the Attainable Housing Task Force was really designed with a mandate, goals and objectives, deliverables to try and find ways to increase our housing stock, for those $600, $900, $1,200 rental units, taking a look at tiny homes, laneway homes, container homes, take a look at our official plan zoning bylaw, how we can bring new housing stock into the market for those in the low to moderate income. And we're going to work hard on that. So Cheryl has been a Southampton Ward councillor since 2014. She is a member of the Attainable Housing Task Force and is leading a task force subcommittee to coordinate homelessness and social resources in Saugeen Shores. And throughout our planning process, as I mentioned earlier, the main goals and objectives, deliverables, was to take a look at increasing our housing stock for those in the low to moderate income levels. Throughout our planning process, what happened was the whole question of homelessness and social resources, crept into the conversation. I'm glad it did. Because it really had my eyes open with, the number of people in this community that are living in poverty. I knew there was a problem to a point, a situation to a point we had to address, but not to the extent that I found out. Homelessness, people living behind Walmart on cots, for example, I just, it really did, it breaks my heart to see what some of the things are going on in our community, that it's really a hidden problem in my view. So we need to address. So we're going to hear from Cheryl in a few minutes, but first I'm going to turn it over to our co-moderator, John Van Bastelar. And John, I think what's going to happen here, and you're going to go over this, but I think as speakers come in, we're going to allow, I think, 1 to 2 minutes, but I'll turn it over to you and take it from here, John. Thank you.
All right, Mike, thank you very much. I'm going to talk a bit about our process this evening. But first of all, before I get into that, I would like to thank Mike and his enthusiasm for this attainable housing. We started last year in January, brainstorming at the library, and we put a process together that was supported by and totally supported by council, thanks to Cheryl and Mike that are on council and the rest of them, that we need to look at affordability and attainability of housing within Saugeen Shores. So we went, set up the guidelines, what we thought was important. We did a survey. We talked to stakeholders who are immersed in this whole issue. But we also knew that we had to talk to everyone about this, because we really do have to identify the needs before we jump in and try and do anything in the way of concrete construction or any type of thing. We have to determine what the needs are. And we've heard through our process over the last 8 months that people would like to have their voice heard about people that are experiencing troubles with homes and with homelessness, with attaining homes and making it affordable. So this is our last step. It is an important step. So don't think that we've got it all written down and ready to go. We're waiting until we hear tonight. So we have 13 people in this evening. We definitely would like your input. We want to hear from you to understand what homelessness, what attainable housing, what affordable housing is in Saugeen Shores, because as Mike has said, it's an invisible issue within this town. We're finding that out. We went through the process, talked to a lot of individuals, learned a lot, a tremendous amount about what's happening in this town. So we would like to work with you with this. And anybody, please don't be shy. That's on our attendee list. Look at the little hand down at the bottom. Tap it anytime you want. We will stop and listen. Because I know it's a tough one to talk about, but we need to hear it. We need to understand. And Jay is our coordinator, and you can see Jay on up at the top. He has put his name and his email address and his phone number at town office. So please, please put in your, if you do not wish to talk this evening, let us know your situation or your history, your experiences, your testimonials, or people you know that have had troubles. We need to hear this before we send our recommendations to council. Our task force has really been interested and really are aware that change is necessary and have learned to understand what's really happening in town. So this is the last process. When we went through this, we heard a few times, how come there isn't any homeless on the panel? Well, this is their opportunity to make your situation known to us. We don't want to get into why you got in that situation this evening, past history, and we don't have any control of what's going to happen in the future. We're a task force. We're bringing the recommendations to council, but we want to make sure that what council get is meaningful and addresses the issue. So please, if you wish to talk tonight, use your hand down at the bottom. Let us know. Jay and Allison can let you in. You don't have to do a video. You can talk to. And lastly, if you do not want to come in and talk us about your stays, where you're staying, how long you stayed, what your future housing needs, or within your family even, please let us know. So I don't think we have a whole list of people jumping up with their hands yet, Jay?
Yeah.
So what we're going to do, folks, you've been watching us, and we're not going to sit here and talk for the hour. We're going to show you some testimonials that we've got from individuals already. And maybe that'll stimulate you into thinking that you could add to their situations. Jay's going to give us a video and a couple of emails, and then we're going to give you an opportunity to speak to us after those examples are given to you. And then if we don't get a lot of debate, we'll show you a couple more at the end of our time slot here. We'll show you another video and a couple other emails just to sort of wrap up with what we've got to date. So I'll turn it over to Jay, and Jay, if you could show us the video or read the emails, whatever you would like to do first.
Well, if you'll indulge me, thank you, John. I have one audio clip that I just received maybe a half hour ago, if I can share that. So You'll listen first for about 2 minutes, and then I'll read another testimonial. I'll press play now.
Thanks, Jay.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin McDonald, and I was born and raised in Kincardine. For the last 5 years, I have been living with my daughter in Tiverton at a reasonable rate. Unfortunately, in September, my landlord gave me notice as he wants to move back into his home. This has been devastating, as I'm sure you realize how terrible the rental market is in this area. I'm a single mom. I work full-time at a decent job at 7 Acres, but I cannot find an affordable place to call home. With over double what I'm paying in rent now, I can only find 2-bedroom apartments, sometimes only one or a bachelor, and it's out of my price range. I'm not even considered because I don't work at Hydro. I'm only one income and I have a dog. I've reached out to as many resources in the area as I can. I have legit over 200 people helping me look for something, and it is not helping. There just seems to be no help for someone in my situation, and I can't find anything even remotely in the vicinity that I work in. I'm extremely stressed out. It's affecting all aspects of my life, and I'm tired of being discriminated because I don't work at Bruce Power. The last rental I viewed, the owner said he was contacted by over 450 people about his ad, and he was showing it to over 100 people. With so many interested, all he wanted were the number of people that would be living there and where you work. With the very limited number of rentals and the prices continuously skyrocketing, people like me are being driven out of the area or even homeless, and it isn't right. I really hope that this sheds some light further into the terrible situation that's going on in our area, and I thank you for our time. Have a wonderful evening.
Well, thanks, Caitlin. I know that it's taped, but that's moving, and thank you very much for that input. That just shows you, doesn't it, Mike, what we're dealing with here in our town?
It really does, John. And, I heard a couple stories, this afternoon, husband and wife, where their son and daughter-in-law, 2 kids, had to relocate to Walkerton for a 2-bedroom apartment, $1,200. And, and then I heard just recently, just this evening, about that, today about the Hanover couple, the couple here had to move to Hanover because accommodation was available there and a little cheaper rate. And it just can't happen, John. We're just losing some very good people, and to moving outside of Saugeen Shores, that to me is not acceptable. And one of the reasons we started this Attainable Housing Task Force a year ago, John, and you and I sat in the same room a year ago drafting the terms of reference for this, and here we are today. We just have to get it fixed. And we talk about that $600, $900, and $1,200 rent for 1, 2, 3 bedroom. I believe that's going to be our highest priority. And matter of fact, we have a meeting in January, to talk to a potential developer that maybe can help with the situation. So the town, we want to do our part. Do we have some land availability? Can we waive some development charges? Can we, how can we make it attractive for a developer, to build those units and to be filled pretty quickly? You build 40, 50, 60 units in the $600, $900, $1,200 range. That becomes more affordable, more attainable. We got to fix that problem, and it's going to be high on our list. So, John, I just, when I hear from the lady from Tiverton, I really appreciate her call, and it's real. The situation is very real, and we just have to work hard. We will.
Well, John,
yeah, and I'm going to stop it here because I see we have a couple of hands. So can we get Matthew at all on talking to us?
There it is. Matthew may go ahead.
Matthew, are you with us?
If he hasn't.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
Hi, Matthew. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I wanted to thank you for taking the time and making this opportunity. And this might be something that Cheryl may touch on later on, but just last week, we had an individual come in, and they'd they'd been born and raised on the shoreline, and I got to speaking with them, let them know about this meeting. They weren't comfortable attending, but he was more than happy to write down what he said was going to be something that was pretty short and sweet.
Very good.
But I just want to read from his perspective as we get ready to hear from more people to come this evening. Hi, my name is Sean. I was born and raised on the shoreline and lived there my entire life. I experienced my first symptoms of schizophrenia when I was 16 years old. I wasn't able to finish school, and I haven't been able to go to college as of yet. I'm on Ontario disability support now, and I make $497 a month for shelter. Where do I go with that? Where do I belong? I became ill at 16, but housing is supposed to be a human right. I'm poor, I'm lonely, but I'm still human too. And that's all he wrote. And I think it's impactful statements like that that are meant to sit with us and drive change in our communities.
Yeah, and John, Matthew, I really appreciate those comments, Mike Myatt, and I just, they're powerful comments, powerful statement. And Cheryl a little bit later is going to be talking about homelessness. That's something that's crept into our planning process, as I mentioned earlier. I'm glad it did. It's something that is kind of a hidden problem in my view, at least in the circles I walk. I've seen some of it, but not. I mean, I have had my eyes open the last 6 months with homelessness. You were a big part of our stakeholder discussions, Matthew, and when I listened to you a month or so ago, I think that was really the start of it. And what you said, that key stakeholder meeting, just it rocked me. And as Vice Deputy Mayor here in the town of Saugeen Shores, and Cheryl's a councillor member, and I know our council is, what I'm hearing, very, very supportive of what we're doing here. It's been an 8-month process. Our recommendations in January are pretty solid. Cheryl's got a task force created now to do with homelessness. It's all part of housing too. These people have to have a place to live. And when I hear about $500 a month for shelter, I just shake my head. And so it's a problem. It's an issue, and we have to deal with it. And we're going to take those steps. And it's unfortunate this process didn't start 5 years ago, but it didn't. So we're here today. We've got the process started, and we've got some pretty solid recommendations coming for us. So I appreciate your comments, Matthew, and thank you again for attending our key stakeholder meeting there a month ago. That really was the introduction for us to do a whole lot more work in this area. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
I'm sure I wasn't as succinct as Sean, but thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jay or Allison, I see we have a Melissa with a hand up. Could Melissa try and get on, please?
I'm on. Hi.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi. I wanted to address my case is a lot different than homelessness. In my case, I do work at Bruce Power. I've been full-time for 19 years. I am priced out of the area. As a single mother, I don't feel like I should find a partner in order to purchase a home here. But we're not making $200,000 a year. I make a very good living. However, you can only qualify for $370,000, and that's not going to buy you even a house in Paisley or Burgoyne.
Yeah.
So there is one house in Walkerton. It won't fit my 4 children. Owen Sound. I can't even find anything in Goderich. So yeah, the situation is a lot different for me. And then the landlord sent me a text and said, I've considered selling the house. Then where will we go? Because we've moved 4 times in 4 years.
Melissa,
the
can I,
houses go up for sale.
yeah. Melissa, can I ask you just a quick question, and you may have a few more comments, and we really appreciate you doing this because it's not, it's not the easiest thing coming on to a forum like this and sharing it, but it means it's important for us because, we're trying to formulate these recommendations and see if we can't move this process along and create some housing stock that's going to help people and hopefully drive down some of those rental costs. But if you don't mind me asking, it's a personal question, but 4 kids, in a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartment, and what would your rental
I'm in a
cost be?
3-bedroom house.
3-bedroom house, sorry. And what are you paying
Yep.
for that 3-bedroom house?
$2,300 plus utilities.
Yeah. Makes it pretty difficult. And, I appreciate your comments and they're all being recorded. And we've heard a lot of the same with our surveys and comments this afternoon. We're hearing common themes. So we're gonna work hard to see if we can't work towards fixing it. Do you have any other comments, Melissa, you want to share?
I have been resourceful in trying to find out why the market has gone up so high in some of the homes that have been recently sold in my neighborhood. People from out of town are taking out second mortgages on their homes and coming here, putting their kids in school because we have low COVID and it's safe.
Yeah.
I can't blame them. To be quite honest, I would do the same.
Yeah.
But now prices are so high that even those of us who've been here 19 years can't buy a house.
Yeah. Yeah.
My down
Well,
payment. I have to double my down payment.
Yeah.
Melissa, could you tell me, are you from the area, or how long have you moved here, and how long you been in the area?
I'm not from here, but I have worked up here 19 years now.
19 years.
Yeah.
Very good.
So your objective, what you're trying to do, Melissa, obviously, you want to be a first-time home buyer. The average household price here in Saugeen Shores right now is $525,000, hardly affordable nor attainable. And we need to work hard over the next 6 months, a year to private public partnerships to see if we can't have housing stock built for a whole lot less than that. And we're going to work on it. So best we can do, we're going to try. And we've got a willing council, I do believe, and we just have to have some willing partners in the community with contractors, developers, and we're going to work towards that. So thanks again for your comments, Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yep.
Melissa. Okay, Jay or Allison, I see we have another Brianne, I believe. Brianne, are you with us?
Yes.
Thank you for calling.
Hi, Brianna.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Oh my God, I'm really emotional about it.
That's
So I have
okay.
great
Just take your time. Take your
Take
time.
your time.
I have, I rent right now and it's great. My landlords are great, but I'm like restricted on growth, I guess, based on my living. So if I wanted to start a family, I couldn't because, sorry.
And,
Take your time.
I can't because I can't afford to purchase a home here. And even homes that have recently come up for sale at affordable prices are having offers held. And then there's 22 and 23 offers on one home. And those people who are purchasing these homes at a low price can afford to fix it up, make it a livable space, and then rent it out at outrageous prices, as we know. So
yeah.
There is homes that are affordable. However, with people having very large incomes, it's not possible to be up against that. And yeah, like I said, I have a decent job and my rent is great. I love my house, but if I want to grow, a family, or I end up in a blended family situation.
Yeah.
There's my income and my partner's income would not be able to afford a house here, and I would not be able to contribute to the tax basin. And and that's frustrating. I'm looking at a home right now in Chesley for $319. So it's okay. So I move away, but I work here, and I'm a part of Saugeen Shores my whole life, and I put my hours in to make our community great, but I will never be able to make contributions to the tax.
Yeah. Well, Brianna, that's another. It's a powerful statement, and I hear your passion, and I hear your frustration, and it's a difficult situation for people who want to get invested for the first time. And one of the things we've talked about a fair amount is, and we've met with a developer over this recently, was tiny homes. And we talk about a young couple with no children right now. We said to the developer, can you put something on the market, that's $225,000, $250,000. Now they're 500 square feet, 600, 700 square feet. They're not big, they're not large. Maybe one bedroom, maybe a bedroom and a half, two bedroom. But what we said to I think what happens with tiny homes, for example, instead of paying that $1,200, $1,400, $1,500 for rent, you're paying $1,000 on a mortgage and you're getting invested. Yes, it's a small home. Yes, it's a tiny home, but you're able to live in that for 2, 3, 4 years. You start to pay down the mortgage. Children come along, and you're in a little better position to take a step up into the 1,000 square foot home for $300,000. So, what we're going to work on, and we have met with a developer to talk about this, is is there a possibility we can build tiny homes for the under 250, and I think that's going to help a certain market of people. That it would help a certain market of people to get invested for the first time with their first home, and that's missing. And so we're going to work on that, and I don't, we're not going to make any promises here tonight, but I'm just saying to you that the 40 recommendations we put together, we're going to be adding some information after this evening for January. The tiny homes are in there, the laneway homes, container homes, the rezoning lands that would permit these things to be built in certain areas of town. People just can't afford the first time home, and it's outpriced. And so we've got to try and find ways to help people exactly like you. How do you get invested for the first time? It might be a smaller home, but you live in it for a few years, you pay down the mortgage a bit, and then you take that step up into $300,000, $325,000 home. So we're going to work on that. And John will vouch for me here, and Cheryl and others, that tiny homes is a high priority of mine. And I just think it's really sadly missing in this community, that kind of a home for under the 250 mark. So can we get there? We're going to give it our best shot. So thanks, Brandon. You want to add anything else, Brandon, before you? We really appreciate you doing this. This is not an easy thing to do. I admire you for what you've done here tonight, because it helps us a lot. So you want to add anything else, Brandon?
No, that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brianna. It's very powerful for us. Okay, Jay and Allison, I guess we have an Addison would like to speak. Can we have him give him up, please? Addison.
Hello.
How are you?
Addison.
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
Good. Thank you.
Good. I'm chiming in actually from a different perspective. I'm involved in the supply chain for home development. My family's had a business in Port Elgin for over 70 years in building supply and construction. So I tend to try and keep my ear to the ground on this kind of thing. And I was sort of interested in what you guys had to say tonight. I had a couple small questions. Maybe I've got two sort of main points here. Mr. Myatt, you mentioned tiny houses on multiple occasions, which I myself think is a fantastic idea. There's new innovative construction methods and new materials coming out all the time that are going to make these homes not only affordable, but efficient for people to own. you know, keeping the
Absolutely.
costs of electricity and keeping, you know, their operating costs cheaper. It's also, there's materials too that are going to allow them to finish the homes to a nice level, but with an affordable, durable product that'll last them for many years without having to replace it. My first question would be, has there been any discussion as to the controls put in place to stop people from purchasing these homes and simply re-renting them back out into the inflated rental market? And how would you go about doing that?
Yeah, I'm going to probably ask Jay to pipe in here and help me out with this one a little bit. I don't know of any, Addison, where, you know, a person's come in to invest and they've done some renovations and all of a sudden, you know, charging astronomical rents. I don't know where, I don't believe that's happened. I don't know how we could put those controls in, Addison, but you know, I'll turn it over to Jay. Jamie, if you can help me out with that question, because it's a very good question.
Well, thank you. There's a couple of pathways that we're considering. You know, in our housing discussion paper that we've recently released for the official plan review, you can find that on our website. We talk about short-term accommodation, which I think is really what drives the price up on a lot of the rentals. Because on the one hand, we want people to be able to rent. If there's a long-term rent, we want them to be able to rent at an affordable rate. But when it comes to short-term accommodation, we are looking at ways in which we can regulate better the short-term rental accommodation market so that they're not developed in areas that aren't appropriate in the town, so that if they're operating safe places that meet the fire code. So those are, and if you've mentioned if they're trying to rent at exorbitant rates, I'm not exactly sure what we could do to control that, but we are keeping our options open at this point and are willing to take any sort of suggestion at this stage.
Yeah.
So those are the things on the specific issue of, you know, renting out tiny homes or any for that matter.
Appreciate that, Jay. Addison, I'm just wondering, is part of your reference to with short-term rentals, persons coming in and investing, buying a home, and then renting it out for short-term rentals for Airbnb, for example? Is that part of your thinking?
I maybe digress. I guess my main concern was once these tiny homes are developed, is there going to be like a vetting process or something to prevent people from these homes falling into the hands of people that don't really need that easy entry or that lower entry point? I'm trying to put it sort of as delicate as I can. Anyway.
No, I understand. Jay?
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends who we partner with, and we have to be careful. And so if we are working with partners that have good reputations and are willing to enter into agreements that if we are helping them, so we're either providing land or we're giving special consideration on their costs and fees for development, or we're extending services at a discounted price to encourage this form of housing, then we want them to be willing to enter into long-term arrangements with the town, so that would be audited and be managed maybe by the county because they're used to this, but 20 years, 25 years, so that we can guarantee the prices at affordable rates.
Okay, and Jay, that's a good answer, and I appreciate the question, Addison, because I think what you're driving at, I heard it clearer now, is that, you know, we build these tiny homes and people hold on them for a year or two, investors buy them up and they jack the prices up 30%. You know, I understand, and so what Jay's indicated is that, you know, through negotiation and long-term agreements, private-public partnership, perhaps there can be some controls there. So it's a good question, Addison.
Yeah.
Anything else, Addison?
I did have one small point, but it may be out of line, but I was wondering about, would there be, I know there's been talk of in the GTA for having tax levies on multi-residence owners. You were talking about, you know, the outlying of land for some of these developers to build these tiny developments and the outlying of reduced cost of services. Has there ever been a consideration on a tax levy on multi-property owners, people that own more than one property, rent them out, and that tax levy be putting towards helping to establish these more affordable developments?
Okay.
I know it's a touchy subject.
Well, I can say we don't have the same powers that the province or the federal government has when it comes to taxation. What is being examined, and again, maybe it's related to short-term accommodation. In my experience in GTA communities is very limited. Let's say none. I've never worked in that environment. But on short-term accommodation, there is a MAT tax, which is a municipal accommodation tax. So they can apply it to places that are geared for tourist accommodation. So these are unit owners that own multiple properties that are rented out on a short-term basis, and a tax can be collected. My understanding is that tax is really geared towards marketing, and we'd have to put that towards promoting the area, which isn't a bad thing. We want tourists to come to the area, but there is that ability. After that, my knowledge of taxation is limited, and I'd have to defer to our own finance department.
Okay.
It's a slippery slope for sure, because if you do raise that, what's the odds that they just pass that levy or whatever on to the rentals? So it's a tough subject, and that's why I sort of thought of it secondary. Thanks for your time, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Addison.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have Mark and Lex. So they still there? Yes. Mark and Lex, are you there?
Oh, unmute.
Yeah.
Mark.
Hello?
Hello,
there's-
Mark.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Yeah, just kind of echoing the last two people, some of their comments. Is there anything that's going to be implemented as far as when affordable housing comes to the market to prevent people that are already property owners or people that are already well off, to prevent them from scooping up these properties, just to turn around, flip them, and rent them out? There's been a couple of examples of this happening, even with us. We only got approved for a $285,000 mortgage, which, as you know, in this town, won't get you much of anything, if anything at all. There was a residence on Ruby Street several months ago that was right in the wheelhouse of what we could afford, but because there was 13 other people interested, the property ended up going $26,000 over the asking price. I feel that was part of the plan for the seller to put it at such a low level and invoke a bidding war, essentially. And then the people that end up scooping it up, like I said, are already well off. They make six figures, and it's something that they don't actually need, and they're just looking at it as an investment. Is there any way or anything that's going to be set in place, or that could be set in place, to prevent that kind of stuff from happening?
Yeah, I'm going to let I'm going to speak to the first. I'm going to talk about the $600 a month, $900 a month, $1,200 a month rental units. I know you want to talk about housing, Mark. Well, and I'm going to let Jay answer that part. But you talk about controls with rents, for example. If the town of Saugeen Shores, and I hope this happens, where we provide a parcel of land for a developer, and it's close to water, sewer, which cuts down on the developer cost to build the units, and if we can look at waiving perhaps development charges, which adds a good deal of money to any development, if we can provide some incentives to a developer, to build those $600, $900, $1,200 units, which is desperately needed in this community. If we maintain the ownership of the land, that does give us some, and I think Jay will vouch for me in this, does provide for some controls for us for when they're built, and we give them all these incentives to a developer to build them at those prices for the 600, 900, 1,200, 1, 2, 3 bedroom. What we don't want to have happen is 2 or 3 years later, that same developer comes in, well, we're going to renovate all those apartments and you're all gone, and we're going to raise those rents. We're going to double the rents. I don't know if that's even possible through the rent board, rent control, problems with Ontario. But if we own the land, we could set up a long-term you know, a long-term partnership agreement where we say, no, you can't kick these people out and renovate and double the rents. Because we would have the control as the owners of that land. I think Jeff, Jay, I think I've explained that well enough. I think we've talked about this before. So that's a control mark we could put in place from the rental perspective. I'm going to have Jay talk about any potential controls with, you know, housing, and I think it touched on a little bit with Addison Ziegler before. But Jay, if you could just run over that again, what kind of controls maybe we could have if a tiny home development was built, for example. Is there any controls we could put on?
Well, I mean, I guess I don't want to, I guess at the risk of sounding a little too technical and speaking in plannerese, is that it depends entirely on the ownership of the land. If we own the land, we have a lot more control. It's pretty straightforward. It's just like any person who owns land, you can decide to charge the rent that you charge. And if it's our land that we're either selling at a discount or using services, as Mike suggested, as an option, then that'll be the price of entering into that arrangement with the town. You must maintain the rent or the prices. If it was a private development, our controls are more limited. They're in things like zoning or conditions of approval of subdivisions. And those particular powers can't control prices in a direct way. But we can, again, use those tools, and we're exploring it. And this is where our task force recommendations end, and they're going to be, hopefully, if they're adopted by council, I don't want to speak for council, but if they're adopted, there'll be a discussion in more detail, refined about how they're implemented. But things like, we won't zone property unless certain things happen. And what those certain things are can maybe have an indirect control on the price or how they get developed. So we're going to explore that, and I guess I'm not trying to be evasive, but that's as detailed as I can.
Yeah.
And Mark, just to add, we've certainly have talked about that issue. A lot of communities have, and we've seen across Canada some of the situations. What you could end up with, and I mean, again, we're looking into the future. We're just a task force. I'm just speaking myself. But you can look at nonprofit corporations that can run partnerships that do control the market and the type of housing that they're offering, and using maybe, if they do make any profit, to increase the housing. That's something that we have to look at, but certainly it is a major concern. I mean, we don't want to be building buildings, although smaller ones would still help a lot, but we still have to have some control that it's not just there for people to make profit on. And that's something we will have to look at for sure. So Mark, is there anything else that we can do for you, or?
Just another point here. I do agree that the tiny housing is a great idea, but it's not always conducive for everybody. Because my wife and we are looking to start a family as well.
Yeah.
And I also take care of my older brother who has a mental disability. So a tiny home for us is absolutely not conducive. So that's why we need to rent something with at least 3 bedrooms to start. But then anything around here that's 3 bedrooms, you're looking at, mortgage prices. Like it's insane, and it's absurd, and it's infuriating. So like I said, the moment something affordable does come up, like on Barn Street, there was a duplex or a semi that was for sale for $195, which was a great price. But of course, it was on the market for 7 days and immediately went. And I could only imagine that it didn't sell for $195. It probably sold for a considerable amount more. But that's what I mean. It's like the market is so aggressive here, but there's so many people with so much money, and that, like I said, they're looking at these properties as investments and not to actually reside in. And again, that's part of the whole issue here as a whole.
Well, Mark,
Yes.
thank you for your comments, and I know you did send in a testimonial via a video, and we did show that this afternoon at our 1:30 session, And with your approval, I think we'd like to show that at our council meeting in January. Our plan is to show some testimonials, and Mark and Lex, I hope that's okay if we use your testimonial at our council meeting in January.
Absolutely. Yes.
please.
100%.
Thank you for that. It was very well done. And I know you spoke from the heart, and you've got some concerns, and they're real concerns, and we are listening, and we're gonna do our best. So
Thank you. I appreciate your guys' time.
okay, thank you.
All right, Jay, how about a couple of emails you can read to us from people that have sent them in?
Yes, right. I have. I've got two ready. I've got three, but if you want to start with two, I'll do that. This one's from Carrie. My son and his girlfriend recently moved to Walkerton because he could not find affordable housing in Saugeen Shores. He's now in a brand new 2-bedroom apartment that has all new stainless appliances, granite countertops for $1,200 a month. This is the same amount I paid for my mortgage when I built a custom home back in 2003. They'd love to have a home of their own in Saugeen Shores that is affordable. My first mortgage was $660 a month in 1998 when interest rates were 6.5%. Not sure we could ever get housing at that price again, but if it was possible to build affordable housing for these young families where $1,200, $1,400 would cover their monthly expenses, including mortgage and utilities, that would be wonderful.
And John, if I could just jump in here for a second, Jay, that story about the couple having to move to Walkerton for, 2-bedroom apartment for $1,200. And I said earlier in my comments, and we're very serious about this. We have a meeting in January to talk to the developer about this, is that if we could pull off that $600 for 1 bedroom and $900 for 2-bedroom, and three bedroom apartment for $1,200. I mean, that same couple to move to Walkerton for $1,200 for 2-bedroom. How would it be if we provided them a 3-bedroom for $1,200 and they stayed right here in Saugeen Shores? And we just can't afford to have these people leaving our community. We don't want those people to leave our community. These are young people that are future Saugeen Shores, and we got the whole question of the labor market too. How do we fill our service industry jobs? If our young people are moving out for other accommodation because they can't find the lower rents here. So that's going to be, in my view, as chair of the committee, and I think there's good support for the Attainable Housing Task Force, one of our top priorities should be to take a look at those $600, $900, $1,200 units and stop that exodus with young people moving out. So thanks for allowing me to interject here. But Jay, I think you've got a second one too.
Yes, this one was gathered by the Y Housing Stability Workers, working with a client who's been sober for 3 months and has been utilizing emergency shelter. The client's income equals about or just over $700 per month. Obtaining a safe and fitting rental with this low of income is challenging. The only options for clients like this are staying with friends or family or obtaining a room rental. And then some with this income, they may be experiencing mental health or substance issues, so a room rental may not be realistic. This particular client has been working towards obtaining work by helping motel with maintenance and connecting with an employment agency. However, even if he obtains part-time work, he knows that he will still have a challenge obtaining affordable housing. And the next lines are a direct quote from the client. An apartment would be great if I was making, say, $20 an hour, and at the end of the month after paying my rent, I wasn't broke and struggling to eat and keep food in the fridge. So what good is an apartment if you ain't got no happiness, no comfort, no joy? All it is a jail cell that you have to pay for and work your ass off to be miserable in. It's as bad as a drug addiction. He goes on, I'd be happier in a tent or some little shack that I built in the bush than a bachelor or 1-bedroom apartment that I'm paying close to 800 plus utilities. My main goal is to live completely off the grid. I want to build a little spot in the woods somewhere that I'm running off solar power or a generator. I know the camping thing's out of the norm, but for me, it's more the fulfillment and accomplishment of being self-sufficient and self-reliant.
Well, thanks for that, Jay. And I think it's a good segue, John, into, Cheryl Grace, I know, was put together some comments around homelessness, and this individual may not be homelessness, but I'm just saying it's, there's an individual on a, maybe perhaps a lower income. We've got it's a hidden problem here in our community with homelessness, and again, our Attainable Housing Task Force, the process started out where how can we add additional housing stock for the lower to moderate income families, where they can actually stay here in Saugeen Shores and live versus having to move out, and we don't want that. So through the planning process, through our Attainable Housing Task Force, we kind of strayed, I'm not gonna say away from, it was strayed into, and it was a good stray, where we brought some speakers in, and through our key stakeholder meetings, we talked a fair amount about homelessness. And Cheryl has done a tremendous job. We've had one meeting, I know she's chairing it, and she set up this homelessness task force. And I wanted to ask Cheryl if she can just talk a little bit about how this transpired, Cheryl, how we get into this homelessness question, and how it's became part of the Attainable Housing Task Force, and what you see for the future to help these people.
Thank you, Mike. So early on in our meeting tonight, Mike spoke about our task force stakeholder meetings, where we had 4 of them in October, and we invited over 30, usually nonprofit organizations and individuals who had an interest in the issue of housing. But through the course of these meetings, we heard from organizations like the United Way, the Poverty Task Force, the Adult Learning Center. Actually, Maria Bertrand is one of our task force members, and the YMCA Housing and Community Initiatives. And we learned that for decades, the Y and other organizations provide emergency social supports throughout our whole region, actually, throughout Grey and Bruce counties. In fact, I was speaking with one of the coordinators for the Y Housing project today, and I just learned that already in December of this year, not including tonight, the Y has provided 33 nights of shelter in Saugeen Shores alone, and they cover the Grey Bruce area. Now, excuse me, they're based in Owen Sound, but before COVID, the Y actually did have an office in Saugeen Shores. What we realized is that the homeless are largely invisible in our town. And so our task force formed a subcommittee to find out who the homeless are and how we can best help them. Excuse me. The Ontario Human Rights Commission says, and this is really echoing what Matthew referred to earlier tonight, that adequate housing is essential to one's sense of dignity, safety, inclusion, and the ability to contribute to the fabric of our neighborhoods and societies. And we certainly agree. We've talked in our task force about how important it is to have everybody included, how important it is to the health of our community to have our workers in all kinds of industries in our town be able to live in our town, their children to go to our schools and live in our community, in our neighborhoods with us. So our subcommittee met. We've met once. We're going to have another meeting before the end of the year. And our current focus is to collect information to help those in Saugeen Shores who are homeless, who need food and social support. Outside of our committee, progress is already being made. You may have read in the newspaper or heard on the news that in the last couple of weeks, our own Saugeen Shores Police Services has partnered with Canadian Mental Health Association, the Grey Bruce Mental Health and Addiction Services, and several other police services across the region to expand upon an existing program that supports people experiencing a mental health or addictions crisis. Our own police chiefs in Saugeen Shores, Kevin Zettel, is working with our homelessness subcommittee. And one of the things that he told us about is how our police are already working on this issue. He was talking about how the police, all police officers, when they're in their cruisers, have emergency supplies, and that if someone needs shelter for the night, they have a small emergency fund that they can use to provide them with shelter. So we're very grateful to our police for that. Above all, we're really grateful to all of the nonprofit organizations that have worked for decades to help those in need in all of our communities. And we are going to work on this. We already have started, and thank you to those tonight who have helped fill in a few more of those gaps. I'm hopeful that we can do something constructive within the town to help. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Cheryl, for your comments. And, you know, as you're leading the way, I know that I'm extremely confident that good things will happen when we speak to homelessness. And again, it's something the Attainable Housing Task Force just moved into, changed our focus a little bit, but that's okay. It's part of something we have to address. So thank you, Cheryl, for those comments. And John, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, it is 8 o'clock. I don't know if you want to repeat some of the videos and testimonials we've had. We have them on record now. They are on YouTube, so anybody that wishes to watch them, they're from this afternoon. I think we could go with that. And the testimonials we had this evening were phenomenal. I mean, it's very moving, what we heard today. It certainly will make an impact on, and I see that some of our task force members are actually watching tonight too, so it will have an impact. And I think we'll be moving forward. And I don't think we need to show any more tonight. Do you, Mike?
I think we're fine, John. I think, you know, the ones we've heard, I know Mark and Lex.
I see a hand up. Matthew has something, so can we get Matthew on?
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks for calling again, Matthew.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't want to take up any more time. It's just, Cheryl, off of your points, and to the individuals that that brave the stigma of speaking tonight, whether it's through email or making videos or just attending. Thank you for bringing the issue forward. With respect to providing support to individuals who are living unsheltered or homeless, the incredible challenge is not just having people come forward and say, yeah, I don't have a place to stay, because of the stigma built around that. But just locating individuals in and of itself is incredibly difficult. And the last time the two counties got together to do a point in time count, the number that was the final outcome was 11 people. And so we know that that's not the case, obviously. But there is a position that both counties provide funding for. It's a partnered position, referred to as the Housing Navigator. Their job is to create a living, working list of not just numbers, but the actual people, including individuals and families with children who are homeless or precariously housed, how they got into that situation, what they would need to get out of that situation, and keeping track and wrapping supports around if required. So I think moving forward, I just didn't want to lose the opportunity to highlight that partnered position, which includes places like the Y and CMHA, and of course, both municipalities. But just as a potential bridge for the lowest of the low income earners in the future, but also anybody in precarious housing, as we've heard over and over tonight. Thank you.
Cheryl,
Mike, can I just say something real quickly? Thank you, Matthew, for bringing that up. I just learned about that the other day. I believe that the Bruce County Council just approved that as a bylaw on Thursday, that Housing Navigator agreement. So that's good news, I think, right?
Well, it's good news they approved it, because the staff's already been hired. But I think in terms of the practice, yeah, the list will be up and running in January, and it's been shown over and over to be one of the main contributors to reducing precarious housing and living unsheltered in cities around the world and across Canada. There's multiple examples. So certainly a step in the right direction in a partnered way.
Can I ask Matthew one more question?
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Matthew, would you be willing to attend our next, time permitting, our next subcommittee meeting, which is on the 17th at 1 o'clock? Even if you just give Jay your email address, I can correspond with you about that.
Yeah, I can reach out.
Talk about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I can reach out to Jay and make the connection there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
John?
Well, thank you, Matthew. We're going to be calling you a lot, I think. Thank you for your information. Well, I guess I think that's about it for this evening, Mike. I think.
Well, John,
yeah.
if I could just interject there for 1 sec. I just wanted to give one last opportunity for any hands that want to come forward to speak. We're going to close it up here shortly. If anyone, we'll give you one more chance to address our panel and make any comments. And if not, I don't see any. So what I'm going to do, John, is I'm going to turn it over to Cheryl here, if that's okay, Cheryl. We've gone through 8 months of planning, and we need to talk about what happens next. So Cheryl, if you could just lead us through that for the benefit of those attending this evening, and then I'd like to say a few closing remarks, John, after Cheryl speaks.
Thank you, Mike. So from our whole committee, and I know it's been said before, but it can't be said too many times. Thank you so much for participating tonight. It takes a lot of courage, and it was very meaningful for us. So where do we go from here? How will we use this to produce real housing options that will help you and your family, friends, the whole community? What we've been trying to do and what we have done, we've collected numbers, we've collected facts, collected stories, and put together recommendations. But this meeting really helped us to put faces to these facts, to these numbers and statistics. And that's so important because it helps this issue, the total spectrum of this issue, become more real for everyone who's listening to this and for council. So we are putting together a report, and that report will be presented to our Saugeen Shores Council in January. And I can say that our task force, and I believe our whole council, is committed to implementing policy changes which will increase attainable housing options as soon as we possibly can. And your participation tonight has really helped to make that even more possible. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl, and I echo your words. And thanking people for attending this evening. And Matthew Shute said it well. It takes a lot of courage to do what you did tonight, and I want to personally thank you for contributing the way you did. It's going to help us, as Cheryl mentioned. So I just like to say that in just my last couple of lines is this Attainable Housing Task Force has done a lot of good work, I believe, over the last 8 months, but the proof is in the pudding, right? We've got to make things happen. This can't be one of those reports that sits on shelves that happens too often. And I know Jay has been so supportive as a staff member, and we're updating our town's official plan right now. There'll be some good changes in the official plan, and housing is right at the top in terms of how can we make things easier for developers to invest in our community for attainable affordable housing. So that's a positive, and I know Jay's right on board with it. And Cheryl said earlier about our mayor and council. I think I like to believe, what I'm hearing anyways, we've got really good support from around the table. So we'll make that presentation in January, and hopefully 2021 we can work towards rolling things out. So John, I'll just turn it back to you for your closing remarks. And again, thank you everyone for attending.
Well, thank you everyone this evening. I see people are leaving right now, but it was very moving this evening. We definitely needed this. It just makes our dedication to this even stronger. And I really do believe this council will make things happen. And appreciate Mike and Cheryl, the work you put into this, and watch in January for the recommendations. Thank you very much for this evening.
Good. Thanks, everyone.